Good morning, friends. Ashton, Gustafson here. This is the good word of the day. I wanted to talk to you today about power versus force. Started back into a book that I opened about 8 years ago. A guy named David Hawkins, book called Power versus Force. And just thumbing through it this week has been eye-opening and inspirational, aligning, all those things. And we all want a life of power. Unfortunately, sometimes the decisions we make that end up making all sorts of future decisions for us, we end up having to navigate our lives out of force. We arrive at this reality of which we're not so fond of. And so what we start doing is trying to, you ever heard this phrase, force our way out of it? The truth is, force is how we live our lives when we haven't intentionally lived our lives up to this point. So you arrive at a reality that you're not too fond of, and you try to force your way out of it. But those of us, those people that you look up to, those great wisdom teachers that show us the way, they lead lives of power. And in order to lead a powerful life, a place where you come from a great and beautiful energy, a place of resource, a place of steadfastness, like just a place that's like a rock, a refuge, if you will. When you come from that place of power, you arrive there by sowing the seeds of power day by day by day. Now, I'm willing to go all in on something. It's okay if you don't totally agree with this. But in my 37 laps around the sun, I have found that I'm pretty sure nothing is more powerful than love, or joy, or peace, or patience, or kindness, or gentleness, or goodness, and even self-control. Think about anyone that you would say leads a life of power, and my senses are one of those words illuminates from their life. And so if that's what we want, if that is the power that we're longing for, if that's who we want to be in the world, then how do we get there? There was a paragraph that I read this morning I wanted to share with you. It says that force always moves against something, whereas power does not move against anything. Force is intrinsically incomplete and therefore has to constantly be fed energy. Power is total and complete in and of itself and requires nothing from outside of itself. It makes no demands. It has no needs. Because force has an insatiable appetite, it constantly consumes. Power, in contrast, energizes, gives forth, supplies, and supports. And I think that's true. When we think of these words that I just mentioned, of love and peace and joy and patience, kindness, goodness, those are words of energy. Those words give forth. Those words supply. Those words support. So the question this morning is, what are you planting? My senses are that when you plant an apple seed, eventually there's an apple tree, many seasons later, by the way. And eventually there's an apple that falls off. What if, and I'm just thinking crazy out of the box here, what if you planted with seeds of love or joy or peace? Could it be that eventually that seed of love would become a tree? Perhaps that tree could provide you some shade. Perhaps it's a tree your kids could play on. But one day, many years down the road, that love seed that you planted, that became a tree, that you sat under, that your kids played on, produced a fruit called love. And then you got to taste that and enjoy that. And then the next season, even more fruit love fell off of this tree. And then you get to take it to your neighbor. Namaste.